Welcome to episode 4 of the Dad Project podcast. I'm your host, John Cooper. You can find me on Instagram at John C. Coach. You can also find me on Facebook and TikTok at John Cooper Online Coaching. And you can obviously follow the pod on Spotify at the Dad Project, and also on YouTube at the Dad Project podcast. Listen, thank you to everyone that's listened. Thank you for all the feedback that I've had recently on my podcast. Hope you're enjoying it. I hope you'll get to know me a bit better. Listen, this podcast is just about me shooting the breeze. It's about me just talking about stuff that I think will help people who I want to work with, who maybe walked a similar path to me, but never quite understood what they needed to do. This is what this podcast is for. This podcast is to help as many people over the age of 30 get in shape and look the way that they want to look without feeling guilty, and how to navigate that around their personal lives, their working lives, and just in general, just being 30 years old in life, being a little bit more busy. But before I start, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a life update from myself. For anyone that follows me on Instagram, you've probably seen that I had a vasectomy a couple of weeks ago. So currently I am not training, which is a little bit of a fucker, if I'm being completely honest with you. As training kind of sort of gives me a little bit of an out to my stresses and stuff. Like if I get stressed, or if I, just want to work on myself, just going to the gym is the best thing for my mental health as well as physically and aesthetically. Not being able to do that has been a little bit weird this week. But the actual operation itself, hopefully has gone well. Won't find out for 16 weeks. But for men that are thinking about getting it done, it's a 20-minute operation. It's not the worst. You've just got to basically follow the doctor's order. Although the anaesthetic did wear off whilst I was having it done. So I actually nearly went through the roof. And that wasn't fun. So if you do get it done, make sure that they give you enough anaesthetic. Use this story to your advantage. So why does this episode exist? Well, I think if I look at myself when I turned 30 years old, I very much wanted to have a decent physique. I wanted to look good. And basically, sort of as I turned 30, it was like, well, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. But with that, it also, I think so many men go through that as well. Like a lot of people, when they turn 30, will do different things. It's not like a midlife crisis, but we have that point of like, oh fuck, we're not in our 20s anymore. Like school was, half a lifetime ago. Looking around, all your friends are suddenly getting married or having kids and things like that, and you're probably following suit as well. You're probably getting married, you're probably having kids and things like that, and suddenly like all this sort of stuff is coming up in your life basically when you turn 30 years old. And not everyone at the age of 30 becomes a dad or anything like that. Like me and Maria, obviously we were expecting the girls when she turned 30, so I was preparing to become a dad at the age of 31. So going to the gym and getting myself in shape was sort of like, it was just like one of them things that I always wanted to do. I grew up watching like wrestling, grew up watching like comic book films. Physiques and people that are in shape has always been something that like kind of fascinated me, I suppose. And it's always something that I was envious of, and always wanted to be able to do it myself. So at 30 years old, with all the best intentions in the world, that's what I wanted. And the first big mistake that I made was, I want to put on muscle, so I need to go in a bulk. And that was after watching loads of like YouTube videos, watching, Mike First and the Harrison twins, Rob Lipsett, stuff like that. Because all you're looking at is, I want to build muscle. So then they talk about calorie surplus. So it's like, okay, well, I need to eat a lot of food. And actually all I ended up doing was probably just putting on more weight over the course of that 9 months. And like, the thing is, like, life becomes genuinely different as well when you're 30 years old. Like at 30 years old, like if your career is going well and you're starting to go towards this upward trajectory, where, there could be promotions, you could be management. Like, there's all these little things that start happening in your life, and you start to realize that, you're not getting any younger, basically. And then, as I said earlier, like, you might have kids on the way, you might already have kids. And then obviously with that becomes you're no longer just thinking about you. You're thinking about your wife, your girlfriend, fiance, whatever it is, plus the child, plus the children, in my case. So instantly, like, for a man, the first thing that goes through your head is, well, I've got to be a provider. I've got to have a good job. I've got to earn lots of money. I've got to be able to do this, do that. Male ego is a very, sensitive thing, in the sense that no man likes to feel like they're underachieving. No matter how many people will act like that doesn't bother them, I think that is a genuine fact for a lot of men, is that you don't like to feel like you're underachieving. You don't like to feel like you aren't financially capable. And then obviously once the kids come along as well, there's also that part of you that's like, well, I want to be able to afford to give the kids the things that I didn't have and stuff like that. And it's not necessarily that you've come from a background where you didn't have anything. Like, I'm not, I, I didn't grow up in like a cardboard box or anything, but what you had, you want to be able to give your kids more than that. So, like, when I was growing up, and it was no, fault of my parents or anything like that, it was just the way they were financially. We never really went on holidays and stuff like that. So I've always wanted to be able to take my kids on holiday. I've always wanted to be able to do them sort of things. And then basically, yeah, listen, like, once the kids come along, then suddenly, it's poor sleep. And with poor sleep ends up with poor nutrition, ends up with no energy to do anything for yourself, ends up with, can end up with depression, can end up with anxiety, can end up with all of these things because you are not sleeping properly. I know for myself, the first year of being a parent, I fucking hated it. I love my girls, like, and I loved them at the time as well, but it just wasn't fun for me. There was two kids who, obviously at the time I didn't know, but there was two kids that had a rare condition, pretty slow feeding, slow to drink their bottles and things like that. And then, waking up because they're teething, still crying because they've had a shit and they want their nappy changed, and just crying for the sake of crying and things like that. And it just, like, as much as you love your kids, and I think anyone that's a parent will understand this, I think it's bollocks when people make out that it's the most magical time in the world when you become a parent. But I think it's fucking difficult. I think, in fact, a lot of people need to be a bit more open about that, because I come from a Facebook generation where everyone was there putting pictures up and making out that it was the best thing in the world, when actually what you'd rather have had is someone turning around and go, "Do you know what, this is fucking hard." And I think more people probably should do it now. Maybe they are doing it, but I will just tell you that having kids, as much as I love it and it is the best thing I've ever done in my life, it is fucking hard. And with that comes a bit less headspace as well, because, you're going to work, then you're coming home, you're being a parent, then you're trying to put your kids to sleep. Then by the time that all happens, you've probably got anywhere between 10 minutes till you fall asleep, maybe an hour, but you just don't get that you time. Like, you can't just sort of disappear off because you've got responsibilities now, right? So there's a lot less headspace that comes with it as well. And I think as well, like, for me, again, as I say, when I turned 30, the idea was to get into shape before my kids came along, and I did it the complete wrong way. And it's because of following someone else's plan, um, and not a plan that was tailored to me or my life or anything like that. It was very much watching like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Dorian Yates and, as I say, Mike Thurston, Harrison Twins and things like that. And I'm trying to cram in 5 sessions a week. And if I can't do 5 sessions a week, then it's not worth doing. Whereas now, because I've been doing this for a while, I realise that you can do just as much in 3 sessions a week as you can 5 sessions a week. It all depends on your schedule. It all depends on your goals. If I wanted to become an elite bodybuilder, then yes, I would probably go for 5 sessions a week. Currently, I train 4 days a week. I train Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I have a rest in the Wednesday, and then I have my weekends to myself. And this latest training program that I've been doing with Nick is the best shape I've been in the way I feel anyway, is the best shape I've been in, and less is more. Because the other thing as well is that, too much volume. It was like, okay, well, I've got to do 5 sets of everything, 5 sets of 10 at least. So you're talking 50 sets on an exercise. And if you're doing 10 exercises, that's 500 sets that you are doing. And it's almost like it's overdoing it. And it's almost like you are overdoing it. Like, less is more. Like, if you can have two really good sets where the intensity is there, you're training towards failure, you are pushing yourself as hard as you possibly can. That is better than doing 5 sets of 10 where you think you're pushing yourself hard enough, but you are just chasing a pump, right? And then obviously with it, you're trying to be hardcore as well. You're trying to, you're throwing your ego around. You're trying to bench when you probably don't know how to bench. You're trying to deadlift and you're just yanking them bars up off the floor and your back's curved like a cat, and you just end up giving yourself more problems and things like that. Squatting, like, you probably have no idea how to, stretch your hip flexors out and things like that, and you're just squatting and you're fucking your knees up and stuff like that. And it's just, the plans break down because, one, they're not tailored to you. Like, if I look at myself when I was 30 years old as a builder, and I remember doing a leg day, and then I had to clear tiles from the top floor of a block of flats, and there was no lift, and I had to basically do that up and downstairs. But I had a massive leg day. As I say, I was probably doing like 500 sets of different exercises, obviously, but my legs were just in bits. And, now I'd sit there and go, oh, okay, if I was working with me now, I'd be like, okay, look, you're doing 3 days a week. I would save your leg day to the weekends when you're not working, so that during the week you are not you are not overdoing it. You can perform at work, things like that. I would probably start the week with, a push day, so my back was safe for as much as possible for the week. And then I'd probably do a pull day somewhere around the Thursday. So I'd probably do like Monday, Thursday, Saturday if I was still in that line of work. And then once you realise that you can't keep up with this 5-day-a-week schedule, and this is what happened to me, it was like, well, I am not motivated because I'm just fucking exhausted. My muscles hurt, not in like the, dumb way, but just I feel like I've been hit by a truck every time I go to the gym. And then I'm just not motivated. And then what I'm relying on is my motivation to kick back in during the midweek. And then it would go one of two ways. I'd either force myself to go to the gym and then I'd overtrain, and it wouldn't be doing anything, or I would just bin it off. And then with that, it's, you get a bit of decision fatigue off the back of that. And it's like, because I wasn't eating properly, I was still getting takeaways every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Didn't matter what I was doing Monday to fucking Thursday. And the other thing as well is I thought I was eating healthy, because I was buying protein Weetabix for breakfast because it said protein on the packet. I thought, oh, I'm doing right, but I wasn't. I didn't know how to track my macros. I didn't even know what macros were, right? So it's just, again, it's the whole ego that comes in men. Sorry about people watching this and me scratching my nose there. It's like men, again, it's the ego side of things. Oh, well, if I get a coach, I can do it on my own. I can just watch videos and I can learn that way. Whereas actually what you need is you need someone to teach you these things. Because if you teach you these things and you actually want to get a good physique and stuff like that, and you learn properly and you have someone there teaching you and you have someone there guiding you through it, you're more likely, 1, to get the physique you want, 2, keep the physique you want, and 3, just learn how to manage it properly around your life. And I think relying constantly on motivation, relying constantly on the Sunday night looking in the mirror, not enjoying it, and then going again on Monday, it's just round and round in circles, and you're just wasting more and more time. It's like, it's not going to get you to where you want to get to. Like, you wouldn't, let's put it this way, right? You wouldn't go into work on a Monday morning motivated and then just go to work but not know what you're doing. You would know what you're doing. You would have a plan set up and you would carry that out to make sure that you've done it properly, because otherwise you're not going to get paid if you're self-employed, or you may even lose your job if you keep doing it like that. So yeah, like, I think relying on motivation when you're in your 30s is it's a thing that just shouldn't really be a thing you do. And the other thing that happens as well is because your life is starting to change, because you're becoming a parent, because you are becoming husband, all that sort of stuff, you then start comparing yourself to the way you were in your early 20s. Like for myself, in my early 20s, I done seasons out in Zante and I had a fucking great time doing it. And, you know, with that, you look at that when all this sort of stuff changes, you're like, oh man, I remember when I was at the beach in Zante every day and I was drinking a Corona with Disco Stew. And I remember having Copperbergs with CK, and I remember watching DJ Easy at work and getting paid for it. And I remember, chasing all the women around and just having fun. Like every day I'd wake up and there's that beach. Go and run into the beach face first, get over the hangover, start again. It was all great. And then suddenly your life isn't like that anymore. Suddenly that is a distant memory, but you look back on that and you think, just to be like that one more time would be great. But you're never going to get that life back, right? You're never going to go back in time. You're always ever going to go forward. And because you compare yourself to your old self, comparison is the thief of joy, right? And the best thing to do when you're turning 30s is accept the excitement that is coming in your life. Like now I'm 40 years old. God, being 30 years old, excited to meet the girls, having that last little bit of, oh, do you know what? If we want to go out for a meal or we want to go meet up with friends or we want to go to a concert or we want to go do whatever, we can do it. We haven't got to get babysitters. We haven't got to, figure out stuff. We haven't got to, when we go out the door, we haven't got to pick up the camo bag of nappies and things like that to take our kids out. Like none of that. But that will be your life going forward for 30 years old. That will be your life coming up. So instead of looking at it the way I did as a negative, you just look at it as a positive. And then when it comes to going to the gym, you feel like doing less is failing. Well, actually, it's not. If you're doing less, you're actually probably going to succeed more because you are not burning yourself out while going to the gym. You are not suffering with the guilt of not getting home if you're a parent to see your kids and your wife. You are working around a structure that will actually work for you. And this is the other thing as well. My genuine belief is the best time to train is first thing in the morning. It's not in the evening. And I know there are people that are like, well, I haven't got a choice. I've got to go to work and then stuff like that. And I'm not saying that that's not true because I know people that get up at 4:30 in the morning and they go to work, they spend 12 hours a day at their building site, wherever they are, and then they're not home until 8 o'clock in the evening. So maybe they'll sit there and go, I haven't got time for it. But I think if you really took a step back and looked and thought, can I find myself 4 hours in a week to just work on myself? Look at your diary, figure out what you've got going on, and then go, yeah, I can go to the gym on that day, or I can go to the gym on that day. I can go for a walk this evening. I can do this, that, and the other. And like, you'll start thinking to yourself, I am failing if I don't do this properly. Well, doing it properly comes from learning from someone, right? The best coaches, the best entrepreneurs, the best everything in life have learned from someone. And they've either learned in a positive way from that person or they've learned not to do, right? So if I look at myself personally in my fitness journey, I learned what not to do, despite the fact that I thought it was what I wanted to do by following fitness influencers on YouTube. Now it's probably TikTok, it's probably Instagram. When I learned of better people was when I got coaches and I got people that lived and breathed what I wanted to be. And I looked up to these people and I was like, I want to be like that. Let's go and work with them and learn from them and become better. That's the balancing act. And it's like, you could go and try to do it on your own, but are you going to stick to it? Maybe, maybe not. Some people, I'm not saying all people, but a lot of people don't. They'll do it for a bit and then they'll get bored and go, no, can't be fucked anymore. Too tired. I can't do 5 days a week or whatever it is. Um, and then it comes to, instead of having like a set structure, it's just I'll train when I can. I'll eat better this week. And it just doesn't work out. Like, unfortunately, in life, you need to prior plan. Like, we've all heard it. Prior planning prevents piss poor performance, I think it is. That's the 5 Ps. We've all heard it. We all know it. But yet, as an adult, maybe because we have our own mind, we, want to think for ourselves and things like that, we just ignore that. And I have become a better coach. I've become better physically and I've become better mentally once I have some structure to what I want to do. I will wake up in the morning, my alarm will go off at 5:30 in the morning. I'll be out the door by 6 o'clock. I'll be in the gym close to 6:30 when I'm fully into it and stuff like that. Sometimes, when you sort of have them peaks and trough moments, as I say, you can't rely on motivation. There's got to come a point where you've got to become like to build a consistency, but I'll get into that in a minute. But I know that the first thing in the morning I have to do is train. And the first thing I have to do is work on myself. Because if I work on myself, then everything will become better because I'm working to become a better person, a better version of myself. And that can work going any walk of life. That's not just necessarily being in the gym. But I will also say the most successful people in the world, they will have their health and fitness at the top of their priorities or very close to the top of their priorities. And loose plans just won't ever survive. You're sitting there and, writing my own plan or going on YouTube or, the other one as well is paying for like an influencer's app for £5 a month where you can build your own workout plan and they'll give you food plans, and it doesn't work to you. It's got to be bespoke to you. It's got to work around your life. And going into the gym and thumping 5 days a week or trying to thump 5 days a week when you haven't got 5 days you can train, what do you think is going to happen? You're just going to end up failing. And then you're going to give up on the process. And then you're going to sit there and blame the fact that you are the age you are for the reason you can't get into shape. When actually the reason is you just aren't looking after yourself and you haven't got a plan. So doing it alone doesn't work for many reasons. One of them is accountability. Now, I have a coach myself. You would have heard him on my last podcast. Having someone that holds me accountable stops me going off the rails. Like, I'm currently not able to train because I'm recovering from the vasectomy. And if I didn't have him, then maybe, I'd like to think it doesn't because of what I do for a living and I know how important it is to look after myself, but maybe I'd go off the rails. But instead, because I have someone holding me accountable every Monday when I check in, I need to know in my heart of hearts that the reason things are going well or they're not going well is because, one, I've put the effort in, and two, because I don't want to let that person down and because they're holding me to account on that one. Doing it alone, no one's going to notice that you're drifting. No one's going to notice that you're drifting off your plan. No one's going to notice if you're having that cheat meal on a Wednesday night. No one's going to notice if you're having them beers on a Friday night and then a takeaway on a Saturday or breakfast on a Sunday or whatever it is. Having someone there that cares about getting you the result is going to work for you far better long term. And when you start slipping up, the easiest thing to do is quit. And actually, all that's ever doing is just holding you back from where you want to be, and you don't want to be there. The reason you started going to a gym in the first place is because you wanted to change, whether the way you were, you wanted to get stronger, how you looked, whatever it is, there was a reason you started. So why not invest in yourself to get that result? Because that's what I would, if I could go back and have my time again now when I turn 30, I would have got a coach. Definitely. And, I reckon I would have looked the way I wanted to as a dad. Instead, what I did is I was overweight. Like, I've got a picture of me holding my nephew who was born 2 weeks before my kids, and I was just fat. I was just so fat. But in my head, I was like, I look good because I've been bulking for 9 months. Well, I just got fat. And if I could have my time again now, I would have invested in a coach. because then there would have been some structure, there would have been accountability, and I would have had someone to support me and stuff like that. And I would have also had someone to support me when the girls were born and I was trying to figure out how I could get going again. And the real reason is because once you fall off that wagon, you stop believing it's worth the effort, but it is worth the effort. As I've said before, as I said on one of the previous podcasts, I want to be a man at 70 years old who can play with his grandchildren, who looks good in a suit when he's walking his daughter down the aisle and stuff like that. It doesn't matter whether that's necessarily I've got a six pack or anything like that, but I'm damn sure I'm going to be healthy and strong when I'm 70 years old and when I walk my kids down the aisle. So it is fucking worth it. It's worth the effort because I want that. And I think a lot of people want that too. And it's not because you don't care, but it's just you give up on yourself because you're just trying to do it on your own. And instead of trying to do it on your own, just get that help, hire that person. Like, because there are people out there that can get you to where you want to be. Don't get me wrong, there will come a point where, you know, you've been with your coach maybe for a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is. And then suddenly you're like, oh, I think I want to do it on my own because you've learned. And then by the time you have learned off them, then you can go and do it on your own. But there should come a point where you look to get that help. Like, I say this a lot, and I think I might have said it on a previous podcast. Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. I think that's undisputed. There's a LeBron James conversation, but that's not for today. Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. Kobe Bryant, also one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Both had a coach. Both had the same coach. Why do you think that was? Because they wanted to get that 1% better to become the best at their craft. Tiger Woods has a coach. Lewis Hamilton has a coach. Name most professional sports players, they have coaches. You know, like, don't get me wrong, football team, they have coaches that are hired to train the team. But they have a team of professionals to help them get better and look better and be in shape so they're able to perform. Okay, you're not playing professional football, but it's the exact same premise. These professionals have someone to guide them. So why do you think that you can watch a video and you can guide yourself when you've never done it before? Simple as that. You need to be taught. We all need to be taught. It doesn't matter, like, even at school, you had to be taught. You didn't just learn how to do your times tables. You didn't just learn how to read. You didn't just learn how to write. Someone taught you how to do that. And obviously, again, like myself, when I turned 30 and things like that, and obviously I tried and I failed, I was just convinced that that was the way it was always going to be. I was always going to be this overweight dad who, you know, would get out of breath walking upstairs, was always going to be stopping at service stations, was always going to be living off takeaways, was always going to drink and stuff like that. And the fact is, it's not always going to happen. You just have to find a way to make it work, and getting guidance is the way to do that. Because it's not the way it always is going to be, because I'm now 40 years old and I'm in better shape than I was in my 30s or my 20s. So if I can do it, and I genuinely believe this because I was never the greatest at PE. I never played football past the age of 13. I never really done like team sports. I never really done anything health and fitness wise in my life. I ate like a fucking child up until my mid-30s. Wouldn't eat greens, you know, still looked at food and was like, ugh, that looks disgusting. And I changed all of that around. And I didn't just do it on my own. I invested in people to help me do it. And you can do the exact same. So listen, that's just my 2 cents on why I think people give up. Is I think that sometimes you give up because you think the journey's too hard and because you're trying to do it on your own and you haven't got someone there that makes it easier. And that's why you fail. It's nothing to do with your genetics. It's nothing to do with your age. It is just the fact that you don't know what you're doing and you're too scared to ask for help. sometimes you just need to look inwardly and realise that asking for help is not a bad thing. Either way, thank you for listening to me talk about this. Thank you to the people that are listening to the podcast. As I say, you can find me on Spotify and you can find me on YouTube at the Dad Project Podcast. You can also find me on Instagram at John C. Coach. You can find me on Facebook and TikTok at John Cooper Online Coaching. So until next time, thank you for listening, and I will speak to you soon.